Look at this. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened here. Not sure what happened, but we are back. Okay, fine. All right, so where are we holding? How much you have to wait in between? Shulchan Aruch, source 24. Actually, Tosfos, source 23. Tosafot. And Davlam, it says, in Meparish Shalmi, how much time to get in the beseeching mode? How much time to get in the requesting mode? The Hainu Kishelech Arba Amot. You have to be able to wait the time it takes to walk 4 Amot. A couple of seconds, right? Hamid Palel Shtei Tefilot, Shulchan Aruch says, Zo Acher Zo, Tzarech Lahamtin Ben Zo Lezo Kidei Helech Dalet Amot. Takes time to walk 4 Amot. Kidei Shtiyeh Dato Miyoshevet Litpal B'Lashon Tahina. So he can pray in a pleading language. Shulchan Aruch says as follows: Ta'av Elohi Tefillah Aravit, Mitpalel Shacharit Shetayim, Harishona Shacharit Ba'abet Tashlumin. La'achas Yomer Yotzer, he says Yotzer, Ve'yichet Brachot, and he says Shmona Esrei. Yomer Ashrei, Va'achar Kach Yitpalel Yutchet Tashlumei Aravit. He says Ashrei Yoshvei V'techa, and then he prays the Aravit. Then he prays the Tashlumin. So you miss Aravit, and you're praying Shacharit. So pray everything Shacharit, pray the Shemona Esrei, okay, and then Tachanun, Ashrei, and then you start. We're going to see is the Indian of saying Ashrei before you start the next prayer.
Because you have to give
This Tachanun, Tachanun is very important that you pray after Shemona Esrei. No, he says not to do that. And then you say next Shemona Esrei. He says similarly, the Chain Shevitpalel Aravit Shetayim Mishum Shelo Yitpalel Mincha. You miss Mincha, you're praying Aravit twice. Yomer Ashrei Ben Tefillah LeTefillah. You should say Ashrei between each prayer. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Yaakov Yosef says by Aravit, do not say Ashrei. We don't say Ashrei by Aravit. That's what the Yaakov Yosef says. What we should do, the Yaakov Yosef says, we're not going to have a chance to look at inside. The Yaakov Yosef, you can trust me on this. The Yaakov Yosef says what to do is, you're praying Aravit, you should actually wait for Aravit to finish. Kaddish, Aleinu, and then do your Tashlumin. Because you're supposed to pray right after the next prayer, but as long as you're still involved in that prayer, you can go ahead and pray again. You can pray the Tashlumin. The problem would be if I prayed Shacharit and I was supposed to pray a second Shacharit, Shemona Esrei, but I finished all of Shacharit, then I went to work or I went home and ate breakfast, and now I said, "Oi, I was supposed to pray Tashlumin Aravit." This is now going to be a problem. We're going to see this shortly. You might have to do it b'nidava. You're going to have to say, if I'm supposed to do it, then I'll say it. And if not, I do b'nidava. We'll see that in a minute. Well, let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah says, so Mishnah Berurah just, he says, look at the orange box in the bottom, because I want to go a little faster. Accordingly, one was reciting Tefilat Tashlumin should first recite the regular Shemona Esrei. Listen to Chazar Tashat. Recite Tahanun, Ashrei, and then he says, Tefilat Tashlumin. That's what the Mishnah Berurah, exactly Shulchan Aruch. However, one should not interrupt in any other way for more than the time it takes to walk 4 Amot. He shouldn't say any Tehillim in between. He should go from Tefilah into Tefilah. Here in the Shulchan Aruch it says, Hadmashim Hatfilah Shehefsed Dafka Bezman Tefilah. Ava B'She'en Zman Tefilah Lo. The only time that you can make up a prayer is in that time of prayer. Meaning, you prayed out of it, you missed out of it. You have to pray double Shacharit. You can only make up that double during the time that you're allowed to pray Shacharit. After the time, you're not allowed to do that anymore. They want to say that the Chazal, lo tik Chazal tefillah sheshlema rak be'odono osek tefilatoh ha'ikaret achar shesheh kedei holach dalamot or ashrei b'netam. They want to say that when they said you make a Tashlumin, it's only right after you pray Shemona Esrei of the Chovah. Aval harbe achronim hiskimu the afle chatila v'badek tzarich lezer b'ali tefillah tefillah shlema tikav achar tefillat hachavot. Al b'diavad enu ma'akev rakim avar zman tefillah. But there are those who say, yeah, you should pray after the other Shemona Esrei, but as long as there's man tefillah, you can still do it. For example, if I pray Shacharit 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I say, I'm going to do my Tashlumin at 10 o'clock, which is still Shacharit time. B'diavad, many say that's okay. Right? And then what was Arabit Tefillah Shacharit Shtein Rak Adal Shaot Al Yom Shuzman Tefillah Shacharit. Kol Zeh Hetkati Min Acharim Ledina Emel Chatchila Yot Nacham B'Chol Zeh Shemi Lo Yitval Tekut Tefillah Shashema Achar Tefillah Dechayavot Yitvala Otob Return Nedava. Mishnah Berurah says, but if you didn't pray right after the second Shemona Esrei, like we said, after Ashrei, you didn't pray the second Shemona Esrei, and you're going to repeat it now. So you went home, you ate breakfast. At that point, you're going to do Tashlumin, you're going to do it b'nidava. If I'm supposed to do it, then it should be Chovah. If it's Nidava, it should be Nidava. That's what the Yalkut Yosef said. You make it tonight like that. The Hainu Sheitaneh v'yomer imani chayav hareze l'chovati ve'im lav hareze nidava. Chen hiskem and priya migadim. So we see from over here that the real time to pray is right after the first Shemona Esrei. As long as you're still involved in Tefilat, you still can pray. That means if you listen to Kaddish, you said Aleinu. Even though you shouldn't be doing that, you should pray right after Ashrei. And Shacharit, after Ashrei, you should start the Tashlumin. But if you didn't, and you continue to say Shir Shal Yom and everything about Shacharit, you're still allowed to make the Tashlumin as long as it's right after the prayer. If you did something in between, then already you have to make that Tanai, Chovah, Nidava. But if it's right after, that is okay. So far, so good.
I can down right after second.
Because you're still middle of davening. Tachanun, Shacharit Tachanun, Mincha Tachanun is connected to the Shemona Esrei. Therefore, you should really say Tachanun before you start another Shemona Esrei.
You should do it if you write it.
So now you're learning not.
You said when's the time? It's 4 amot.
Yes.
No.
But which means 4 amot shouldn't be wasted for anything else. But if you're praying, Tefillah, that's okay. Okay, what happens is I missed Mincha and Aravit. Can I make up those 2 Tefillot by Shacharit? So can I pray 3 Shemona Esreis?
No.
So let's see. The Torah says, Tav Eloi Tefillah Aravit. Source 29, page 250. You did like the Torah. Torah says, Tav Eloi Tefillah Aravit. Yitpalel Shacharit Bet. Shachach Eloi Tefillah Shacharit. Yitpalel b'mincha Gimel. The Torah says you pray by mincha 3 times if you miss Aravit and Shacharit. B'tchilah b'tfilah shemincha, v'after Shacharit, v'after Aravit. Ratza Leimer calls man shelo avar hayom. As long as the day didn't pass, you can pray everything. Rabbeinu Yonah says, Shafil lo yitpal tefillot harbeh. The whole week went by and you didn't daven, you can make everything up. Yesh lo Tashlumin. You can bring everything up. The Yalkut Yosef actually he writes. He says that you can do it b'nidava. You can do it b'nidava. If you miss more than 1 tefillah, right? You miss 2 tefillot. You can make the third one b'nidava. B'nidava. You can't do it as a chovah. The third one b'nidava you could. But he writes over there in parentheses, if someone became about tshuva, he should not pray all the prayers he missed. He became about tshuva at 50. Now he wants to make up everything from 13 to 50. He says, don't do that. That don't do. You can do it b'nidava technically, but you shouldn't. Look at Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch doesn't go with the Torah of the Rabbeinu Yonah. Shulchan Aruch goes with the Rambam and Tosafot, and they say, "Ein tashlumin ela tefillah hasmucha bilvad." Only time it is considered a tashlumin, it's when it's right by the next prayer. You missed 1 prayer and you go to the second prayer, that could be a tashlumin. If you missed a prayer in between, it's no more considered tashlumin, and you can't make up 3 prayers. You only, if you miss Shacharit and Mincha, you only pray Aravit twice, not 3 times. You can't make up.
So if someone gets sick, what happens? What is supposed to do? 2 times or 3?
You can make it b'nadava. You can make it. Jacques says you can do nidava. You can do an extra, but you cannot make it as a chovah. Says you want to do a nidava, you make something new in there. And it's good to do that. If you miss 2 prayers and you come into the 3rd prayer, the second prayer is a tashlumin for the one you missed previous. The 3rd prayer that you missed, you can make a nidava. There's something new in there. Now, who had dinner feel mitpal mincha v'gamkein lo yochel lahashlim be'erev avor shacharit. The code the lo tiknu hashlema rak b'zman tfilas muchala. Someone didn't pray shacharit. He prayed mincha, forgot to do tashlumin. Came to Aravit now. Can he make tashlumin? No, because it has to be the tefillah that's right afterwards, not a tefillah that passed in between. Shehiskim the toiv sheitaneva im ani chayv leitpalel every time he makes an nedava, he should say, if I'm supposed to pray a chovah, like Rabbeinu Yonah and the Tur, then it should be a chovah. If it's not, it should be a nedava. This way is b'yotzeh kol ha-shitot. He brings here from the Piskei Shavot from the Hayei Adam. Hayei Adam says, not so fast. Don't make so many nedavot today. He says, why? Because most people who pray do not have kavanah on their tefilah. So you're going to make all these nedavot. You're going to make 20 tefillot you missed. You're going to make nedavot now. You're not having any kavanah on them. Better not to do that. I think that's what the Yalkut Yosef comes and says as well. If you missed, because you're about tshuva, you missed so many tefillot, don't start making them up now b'nedavah, because you can't practically do it the correct way.
100 years.
What?
100 years.
Right. So making the nedavot for 100 years of tefillah. Okay. Let's see if we can. This next part is a little more interesting. Now, this first thing to know. Tosafot, and look at Shulchan Aruch 35. Tosafot explains that why does Tashlumin work? Why Tashlumin work? Tashlumin works because really all day is set for davening. Because davening is asking for a request for mercy. And all day you need mercy. But Tefilat Musaf is not a merciful Tefilat. Tefilat Musaf, we pray because we're supposed to bring a carbon on that day. So therefore, you can never make up Musaf. You missed Musaf, you missed it. The whole day went by, you didn't pray Musaf in the right time, and time passed Musaf, you cannot make up Musaf. Musaf is not make upable, and you cannot use Musaf to make up Shaharit. You can't make up Musaf, and you can't use Musaf to make up Shaharit. Okay? That's what Shulchan Aruch says. Avar kol hayam v'lo yitkol Musaf ein la tashlumin. Now, listen to this interesting Mishnah Berurah. This is a case that came up to me on this past Shavuot. I did not know this Mishnah Berurah at the time, but I did answer correctly based on what I saw in the Yalkut Yosef on a different case. I extrapolated to this. Listen to this. Musaf doesn't work to make up a tefillah. Let's say a person forgot to pray shaharit. He cannot pray musaf twice. So you understand? So you have to make up shaharit in mincha. I assume so, because musaf is not considered a tefillah that's make upable. You'll make it up. Yes, you make it mincha, right? Now, im shachach shacharit mitfila musaf. Someone, this doesn't happen. Shavuot morning by my brother's house, someone was davening there, and he prayed musaf from the machzor before he prayed shaharit. We're all praying shaharit. Someone opened up his machzor to musaf, so he prayed musaf. Now he comes over to me. He says, "I pray musaf. What do I do? What I do is shaharit." So I never, this question never approached me before. So I took out the Yalkut Yosef on Shabbat and I looked through there. He said musaf doesn't work from one or the other. So I told him based on that, I said, and since we were praying, it was nitz that morning, we were praying early. You were praying shaharit, but I told him to pray shaharit while we were all praying musaf. Why? Because it was still the time for shaharit. We still have plenty of time. I didn't want him to miss Kriyat Torah because we already started Kriyat Torah. So miss the Kriyat Torah. When we pray musaf, you do shaharit. But if you're praying a late minyan, and you prayed musaf first, and then you realize shaharit, but now it's already after the time, you wouldn't be able to make up shaharit that way. You would have to make it up in mincha. But if a person prayed musaf, he didn't pray shaharit, and the time for shaharit didn't pass, he goes back and he prays shaharit because it's still time to pray shaharit. We were praying shaharit, he accidentally opened his siddur to musaf. When we were praying musaf, since it was still time for shaharit, he prayed the shaharit tefilah instead. No, he already prayed musaf. The halacha is that you pray musaf early, that's counted as your musaf. You can pray musaf before shaharit. You should be praying musaf after shaharit, but if you pray musaf first, you don't go back to repeat musaf.
It wasn't connection.
But it goes, it works. Okay. That's that. Now the Yalkut Yosef adds on source 37. The same thing is true with Tefilat Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. Tefilat Ne'ilah can never be made up, and you can't use Ne'ilah to make something up because it's a separate prayer, not connected to Mincha, Shaharit, Aravi. Musaf doesn't work, and Ne'ilah doesn't work because those prayers are not meant for Tashlumin. You can't use them to make up, and you can't make up those Tefilot if your time for it has passed. Now comes the real big issue in Tefilat Tashlumin. Okay, Now, this is not where a person forgot to daven, but a person prayed in a way that his tefilah was not correct. For example, let's see over here. Look at Tosafot. Kater ben Yehuda. Im tov lo hiskir rosh chodesh mincha lo yitfel od b'layla. Dilama yitfel od. Harei kvar yitfel kol tefillah mincha b'od yom. Levad rosh chodesh lo hiskir. Im kein ein marviach klum im yachzor yitfel b'tzor rosh chodesh. Harei lo hiskir od tefillah rosh chodesh. V'esrik kar kvar hitpalel. So, guy was supposed to pray mincha rosh chodesh. One day rosh chodesh. Okay? One day Rosh Chodesh, and Mincha Rosh Chodesh, you're supposed to pray Yal V'Yavo. He missed Yal V'Yavo. Mincha passed now. Now it's time for Arabit. He realized he made a mistake. Should he repeat? Because his davening wasn't counted. Right? You have to pray it over. So does he have to repeat it now at Arabit or not? He says he already prayed Shemona Esrei. He just missed Yal V'Yavo. And now, in the night, it's already Motzei Rosh Chodesh. There's no more Yal V'Yavo. So what's the point to go back and make a second one? It's not like he forgot to daven completely. He davened. He missed Yal V'Yavo. So you're going to tell him to repeat a second time, he's still not going to say Yal V'Yavo. So does he go back and repeat it? So Rabbi Yehuda says no. But he brings down from the Ritz, because Tosafot learns the Rip, I had the conversation Mavdil B'Rishona Ve'enu Mavdil B'Shniya. In Lo Hivdil B'Rishona Hivdil B'Shniya Shniya Alatalo Rishona Lo Alatalo. He goes from the whole case that we had about the Havdalah on Motzei Shabbat, if you missed Mincha, that he says because he should have placed the second prayer first, because that is Havdalah. He did not recite the Havdalah in the first place, but he recited Havdalah in the second. He revealed that the Havdalah, that the Arabit was the second one. Remember, that's what he said. Therefore, he's required to go back and pray. But if he recited Havdalah in both, even though he's not required to do so, he doesn't have to go back. And if he did not recite Havdalah in either of them, that's what we said, right? He doesn't have to recite them. We do not make him repeat, right? The ruling that one must recite Shemona Esrei again, as Tashlumin implies that he must pray another time, even though he will not be praying anymore the second time that he did in the first one. What does this mean? When I made a mistake and I did Tashlumin, I'm supposed to make Tashlumin Aravit, Motzei Shabbat, but I didn't say Havdalah in the first one. I said Havdalah in the second one, right? You told me now go back and repeat the first one over again, right? But what's going to happen? The first one I didn't make Havdalah in, and now my third one I'm not going to make Havdalah in either, because I already made Havdalah in the second one. So you're telling me to go back and do it again without Havdalah, even though I'm not doing anything again. So the Riv says, so you see, even though you're not going and you're adding what you're supposed to add, it's still you have to pray again. So therefore he says, if you missed Mincha Yal V'Yavo, and now you're coming to Aravit, pray it twice without Yal V'Yavo. Because you missed.
It doesn't come.
Right. You know what it's looking at? It's not looking at the Yal V'Yavo, it's looking at the Shemona Esrei. Is your Shemona Esrei right now correct? Right?
Both of them are correct.
No, it's like you did not down.
But at Aravit, it is correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So pray the Aravit twice to correct if you look for the one that you made a mistake in.
Anyway.
What?
You did
Right.
it down.
Right, that's the machloket. That's the
down.
machloket. That's the machloket of Yehuda and the Rip. Yehuda seems to be saying, if you're not adding the Aliyavo, don't say it. Because your whole thing is you're making it up. You're trying to make up those words. Rip says, no, I'm making up a correct prayer, not the words. I think that's the crux of the machloket of the Rip and Rabbi Yehuda. So Shulchan Aruch says, Tzurba b'mincha Shabbat, v'yitpilel yudchet, v'lo hiskir shel Shabbat, v'yitpilel b'motzei Shabbat shetayim, v'einu mavdil b'shniya, v'yitpilel ota v'torni dava, v'ein tzar l'chodesh b'davar. Hu adin im lo hiskir yal v'yavo b'mincha shel Rosh Chodesh. He says over here, the same din is for mincha b'Rosh Chodesh. So you can look in the Yalkut Joseph, page 665. 605, sorry. 605. He says over here, the person didn't say Yal V'Yavo Mincha Rosh Chodesh, and he found out Motzei Rosh Chodesh. It's no more Yal V'Yavo. Do you have to do second out of it or not? It's like you didn't daven at all. Because you missed Yalvayo, you didn't daven at all. The tzarech leitpal out of it your time. Therefore, you should pray out of it second time, looking at the correction when Esrei or not. The fact that he davened, he didn't pray Yalvayo. But he's not going to be able to fix anything during out of it because he's not saying Yalvayo. He says, am I supposed to pray obligation? I do obligation, and if it's nidava, it should be nidava. So anytime it seems to be a machloket, if you do tashlumin or not, you're going to make that. You're going to make that stipulation. Okay. Here he brings the Mishnah Berurah that the same thing is true. If you missed Yal V'Yavo, you would what's it called? You would repeat it again. He says the same thing is if you miss V'ten Talumatar, right? You miss V'ten Talumatar, and then you're praying. When is this? We pray Mincha Friday. You're supposed to say V'ten Talumatar. He doesn't. So now it's Tefilat, no good, right? So now it comes out of it Shel Shabbat. But you don't say out of it Shel Shabbat V'ten Talumatar. No Baruch Aleinu. So does he go back to do it a second time? It's the same machloket. So you should do it like that. One forgot did not mention Tal Matar and Mincha on Erev Shabbat. The lach is they should recite Aravit twice of Shabbat, even though he's not going to say Tal Matar in Aravit.
The process of the computer.
Okay, so going to page 256. He brings if Rosh Chodesh occurs on Erev Shabbat, and Rosh Chodesh is just one day, and he forgot to mention Rosh Chodesh, and he remembered after it grew dark, he should not recite Tashlumin, since it will not help at all. But he should do Nidava, but he can't do Nidava on Shabbat. Look at page 257. I'll explain it over here. Yalkut Yosef says as follows. Okay, the case is as follows. You have to remember another din now. The other din is you do not pray Nidava, Tefilat Nidava on Shabbat. So now, if I missed Yal V'Yavo, so first we want to make a difference between Ten Tal Matar and Yal V'Yavo. Ten Tal Matar, if you didn't pray it, everyone agrees you didn't pray this one answer. Therefore, you can pray out of it of Shabbat twice. It's not considered Nidava. But Rosh Chodesh, Yal V'Yavo, we saw was a machloket, whether it was okay or not. So now, he missed Mincha Erev Shabbat, which was Rosh Chodesh. Now it's Aravit Shel Shabbat. There's no Yal V'Yavo. But we saw by Yal V'Yavo, we saw as a machloket. Yehuda said you don't go back to repeat it. And some Rip said you do go back to repeat it. So we say you do it Nidava. But there's no Nidava on Shabbat. So what do you do now? Aravit Shel Shabbat. Do you pray it twice or not? So Yalkut Yosef says, what? Mincha is supposed to be Yal V'Yavo of Rosh Chodesh. What? Right. So he should do Tashlumin, right? But we said that when you do the makeup prayer for Rosh Chodesh, we said you say if I'm supposed to, then it's Chiyuv. If I'm not supposed to, it's Tashlumin. It's Nidava. But you cannot make Nidava on Shabbat. So Lepikach, Yalkut Yosef said, Lepikach, Loit Pelel Tefilat Tashlumin, Ele Yechaven, Bibrekat Me'en Sheva Sheshemoa Me'ashliach Tzibor, V'dai Lo Be'kach. You can get out of a Tashlumin of a Yalev Yovo B'Rosh Chodesh by listening to the Me'en Sheva. Yeah. Right. When you listen to that on Friday night, that's going to get you out. That's because you're not allowed to do Nidava. Listen to this. He didn't say Shabbat. Shabbat. When you repeat for Rosh Chodesh, you have to do it in Nidava. And like we explained from the Rambam, you do not pray in the on Shabbat. Therefore, you don't pray the Tashlumin. You listen to the Shliach Tzibor from the Me'en Sheva. You should tell them that for you. It says the same thing. If you forgot Tal Matar on Mincha, he didn't say Baruch Aleinu. Mincha Shabbat, and he remembers on Shabbat. And now, what does he do out of it? There's no Talumatar. There's no Talumatar on Shabbat, right? There's no Talumatar on Shabbat, right? So it's the same type of thing as the Yalviyavo. You're not getting anything from it. So therefore, you don't pray Nidava. Therefore, he's Otze Yotzeh from the Me'en Sheva. You have to tell Shef Tzibur to have kavanah for you, and that will be enough. So he's saying it's similar to the Yalviyavo. Yaakov says it's similar to the Yalviyavo. That since you can't make it up because you're not saying those words, therefore you cannot do Nidava on Shabbat. Right? Right? And it works. And it works as a Tashlumin. It'd be Nidava. For a Tashlumin Nidava, it works. Look at this last Yaakov Joseph over here. He says, Ta'a. Person didn't pray mincha erev Shabbat, regular mincha. Mitpalel aravit shetayim shel Shabbat. Harishon hishana aravit, v'shnei l'tashlumin shel mincha. The im hu shliach tzibur. So not just for nidava, but even if he just was a regular mincha, that he's supposed to pray twice. It's regular tashlumin, which you really should be praying twice aravit now on Shabbat. Im hu shliach tzibur. If he is a shliach tzibur aravit on Shabbat. He can do the tashlumin that he's supposed to do. The chova tashlumin, he can do it in Me'en Sheva for himself. He can get out of it that way. But he says the yachid who didn't pray mincha and he's not the shliach tzibur, he shouldn't fulfill it through the shliach tzibur in the Me'en Sheva. He should rather pray two out of it, one to make up the mincha. But if he did do it through the Shliach Tzibur, and the Shliach Tzibur had kavanah for him, so you can use the Me'en Sheva to make up all your Tashlumin if you have the kavanah b'di avad for the chovah.
This will work if you in the synagogue pray. If you pray not in the synagogue,
Then you have to make Tashlumin for sure. Yeah, if you miss the regular mincha, you have to make the Tashlumin for sure. If you miss the Yalvi over 10 Talmud, you do not make it up to out of it on Shabbat. Because you have to do it from Nadava, and you can't do Nadava on Shabbat. But it's all right if you missed Mincha. If you didn't make a mistake. If you made a mistake in the davening and you have to repeat, then you do not do a second one on Aravit Shel Shabbat. If you missed Mincha on Friday, then you do pray two Aravits on Shabbat.
If you done by yourself.
If what?
If you miss my
and you prayed by yourself on Friday and you missed Yal V'Yovo and it comes to Aravit Shel Shabbat, then you do not do Tashlumin by yourself.
No Tashlumin, it's Nadava.
Right, it's a Nidava Tashlumin. It's Tashlumin Nidava and you cannot do it.
So you only do one.
You only do one out of it. Yeah. Okay. Zehu.
So you cannot do Nadava this on Shabbat because it's like a present.
Right.
Right? That's right?
Right.
Amen. Amen.
Give me one more minute after and I'm just going to finish up.
10 o'clock today, am I right?
Cool.
That's what it is.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. On Aravit Shel Shabbat, if you can repeat it twice, you repeat the same Shemona Esrei.
1 minute.
The same din for Tashlumin will apply for women as well. If a woman misses a Tefilat, she can also do Tashlumin in the next Tefilat.